Hey folks, welcome to Dinks. It is your Wednesday Humpday Happy Hour. Tonight, I am your intro host, Dr. Chad Duplantis. Dennis in the Know is actually being hijacked right now by a blank screen, Dr. Jeff Horowitz. I'm going to remove him because I'm not happy with him right now because this is my turn to intro this show. But anyways, we are back. Your backstage pass to trends, politics, and news in dentistry. It's unbiased. It is real. We are three wet finger dentists that practice every single day, and we're coming to you live to talk to you about what's going on in dentistry. Tonight's show is sponsored by Align Technology. We want to thank them for being an educational partner. It is such a great honor to be partnered with Align Technology, one of the biggest names in dentistry and one of the best names in dentistry. And I'm coming to you tonight with my co-hosts, Dr. Jennifer Bell and Dr. Jeff Horowitz. Jeff Horowitz
How do I look?
He
How do I look?
A fax machine.
Yeah. Was that a little bit better of an intro?
Much.
You butchered it.
Hey, listen, dude, I don't have the script, but
You got the 50-50 vote.
I was pretty proud of myself because at least I got to do what I do best.
What is that?
Obviously not the intro.
You know what? This translates so well to podcasts, though.
It does, because you know what? Even
right.
though we can't see you, you sound fantastic.
I'm happy. I was so excited. I just came back from a dinner with all the great people at Align and Itero. Like, I'm up here in Raleigh at the mothership. We just had this great Exocad and Itero event known as Excite. And what a great day of education. What a great evening of dinner and camaraderie. Just an absolutely amazing event. And how apropos that we have Ryan Molis on today for the show as well. So this show is kind of everything Align Itero, isn't it?
Your timing was impeccable.
Your timing was impeccable. Hey, Jeff, would you like us to downsize right now and then you can do that intro appropriately?
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take away your moment in the spotlight.
I was there. I was
But
all in.
You did say that you won't be on the show next week, right? You did kind of say that.
I did.
Like,
say
Jeff, you
that.
saw that, right?
I saw that.
Okay.
I did.
So
say
next
that.
week's intro is going to blow hats off.
I'm telling you. I kind of like this look. Like the open laptop look. I like this.
It's so odd. Anyway, all right, team. I was thinking about something today, and
Let's
Jeff,
declare.
you inspired me. So, as educators and lecturers and whatever, it's difficult at times. And also, I think as you've been in practice for a while, you probably also hit this pinnacle. It becomes difficult to find education that you want to consume, that has value to you, that you could leave and say, I got some pearls out of that, or actually I could go home and actually do a few of these things. So here you are, a lecturer educator, and you're doing continuing education. You've done it actually for the last 8 days. I'm not sure what your bank account looks like, but I'm really proud of you for getting all these CEs. But how does one, as they get further into their career, find the things that have value to them? How do they find the CE that they can walk away from and say, yep, that was really valuable to me? Because there's a lot of competition out there. So do you have any pearls of wisdom of how you source your CE and look for education?
For me, it's content. What do I want to learn? What do I want to be better at? And unfortunately, that's like everything all the time. Mm-hmm. So I have to narrow that down. And so I'm going to speak to people who have been with some of these speakers. In this case, it's interesting because we already know, Exocad, we know that this is pretty much the premier design software in, for our purposes right now. We already use, many of us do, Itero, they've been an educational partner with us. We know the quality of the product already. And I know that in trying to tie these things together, that a company like Align iTero is not going to bring in, the C team for this. So there was no way that was going to happen. And, it's just one of those things. I don't ever want to feel like I'm falling behind the curve. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to do in dentistry. And even if you're on the podium and you're lecturing all the time, like the three of us do, it's still easy to see that new person who's really passionate about something, that is just doing stuff that blows you away. And you just think, how do I get better at that? How do I become a little more like that? We can't be great at everything, but I also don't want to ever feel like I've been left in the dust. And honestly, it invigorates me. I leave stuff like this and I'm like way more stoked about dentistry just from having been here today.
Yeah, I would say for me, that's been a critical piece for me staying engaged in dentistry. And even now, the combination of teaching, but also attending courses. And I find myself seeking out now our friends who come on the show and hang out with us and wanting to know what they know, like wanting to dig that little bit deeper so I can have a more complex understanding. But it's the camaraderie, the education, and the fellowship that comes with those courses that you find do invigorate you. Even if you apply nothing, which you hope you can find some pearl, but even if you apply nothing, most of them have some value for managing your own burnout. Or even if you just meet the guy that you're sitting next to and he's like, man, I really suck as a dentist. You're like, yeah, I really suck too. And you can just commiserate and sucking together, like there's some value in that too. So there's a lot of good things that happen when we can be in person learning together.
Yeah. Well, it's about relationships that you form. We always joke and this was your saying that we're kind of the CE after the CE as we sit at the bar and kind of hash out, all the concepts that were talked about. Mm-hmm. And, throughout the course today, it was very informal, but yet so informative that we all had the opportunity to actually sit and talk with each other at the breaks. They had a beautiful dinner tonight where, we could kind of talk about some of the concepts. And honestly, I've made some incredible new friends and contacts in the industry. And if that doesn't pump you up about what we're doing, I don't know what does.
Chad, how do you feel?
Well, I kind of have a new take on this, and it's maybe a little bit different, but I agree with everything that Jeff said first off. But my new take is it kind of came from last weekend. I went to a hygiene seminar. All right. Okay. And you would think that would be mainly geared towards hygienists. But what I realized in that seminar is that sometimes our education and our information comes in the least likely of sources. And I'm not saying that we couldn't get educated in a hygiene seminar, but one of the things that I noticed is that a hygienist was speaking and there were approximately 100 attendees. And out of those 100 attendees, there were 3 dentists. And I was really captivated by the information that was shared. And the whole time I was thinking, you know what? Yes, this is mainly geared towards hygiene, but that's a big component of our practice. And I truly believe that we should be, involved in that and involved in some of the education that they're receiving in order for us to work together better as a team. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And, so it really invigorated me on Monday morning when I got back. And there were some things that I was immediately able to, I was excited to discuss certain things with the hygiene team and with the office, on Monday morning and mainly the hygiene team. But it made me think, okay, the next time there's a big hygiene meeting, I want to go with the hygienist to that meeting and see how we can become better as a team. but yeah, I think we've always got to be in tune with education. We got to be in tune with what's going on out there, and all it's going to do is make us better. Yeah, there's good. Yeah, there's bad. And sometimes we're gonna, we're not always gonna go to the good. We're gonna see both. But it does reinvigorate me, and I feel that it makes me and our practice a better practice by going to hygiene. And I think there's always at least one pearl that you can take away from both the good and the bad. So you just kind of constantly be evolving and constantly be looking and seeking to better yourself and your team.
I love
feel
that
like Jeff's upgrade from the camera.
How do I look?
You look great.
Can we make my mouth move?
Yeah.
Oh, do you see how I kind of listen as I speak? I kind of
like a jib jab.
I get loud and it gets bigger.
There you go.
How great is that?
At least
I'm
everybody
just gonna
knows
let that one just float off into.
All right, don't leave it alone. Leave it alone. So one of the things that happened today, and that the great points that you just made, Chad. One of the speakers is a primary assistant who is just phenomenal with all things Exocad. And, so we were talking at one of the breaks, and, she was trying to kind of understand, what I was looking to gain out of design, how I wanted to implement it, particularly with functional dentistry and TMJ splints and things like that. And she kept saying to me, take that for what it is. I'm just an assistant. And I said, don't ever say that again. Just by what you're doing here and the education that you sought out to do this, I put you in a category of people that I just respect. Anybody who wants to better themselves and anybody who wants to better our profession. I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're the person that sweeps the floors in my dental office. If you make patient care better and help another dentist get better at that as well, or help other clinicians get better at that, I'm like, don't ever say that again to anybody. And what was really neat about today is that, so there were assistants, lab technicians, dentists, hygienists, and then of course a lot of the team from iTero and a lot of the team from several labs, and it was just that kind of conversation doesn't happen very often, and so it just makes for a much better experience to see everyone else's perspective.
I would completely agree. And I just want to say, as a presenter, that a lot of times the best questions that we get are from the just an assistant, or the just a hygienist, or the just a front office person. We get some of the best questions out there. So I don't ever like to see people downplay themselves in the profession.
Well, boys, are you ready?
I want news.
Always.
I've been bragging about your news segment all day today.
Guys, I butchered it. I said the wrong state.
What's that?
Ooh.
Yeah, I did. I'm getting hammered in the comments. Fine.
Well, just hey, let's go ahead and air it out there. What's the correct state?
Wisconsin.
There you go. The correct state is Wisconsin.
Thank you. All right, let's get to it.
Take it away.
Okay, so I have some really interesting news for this week. This one actually applies to all businesses in the United States, particularly small businesses. If you were transacting Visa and MasterCard processing between the dates of January 2004 and January of 2019, you may be eligible to participate in a class action lawsuit that is now currently worth $5.54 billion. If you haven't researched this class action lawsuit or talked to your bank, some banks are endorsing certain companies or law firms to help you file the paperwork. The deadline is August 30th of 2024, although I will say many of these firms are asking for the deadlines to be much earlier than that, so they have time to get all the paperwork together. The issue in this particular class action lawsuit was that Visa and MasterCard have settled claiming that there was some co-conspiratory activities that were going on where they were both charging excessive merchant services fees, sort of doubling up on one another. And if one agreed to do it, then the other would, so it wouldn't look as nefarious. They've opted for settlement on this class action lawsuit. And so if you were a small business that was running merchant services through those particular dates, January of 2004 through January of 2019, you are likely eligible for some type of compensation back on those merchant services fees, which I don't know about you, that certainly could add up quite fast in our practice. So that's our huge PSA for the evening, to make sure you have an action item for when you get off of this podcast tonight. Another state news, and we will get the state right. The state of Florida, and particularly the governor, Ron DeSantis, signed many bills into law just recently, but one notable law that affects dentists in particular in the state is that he signed a law specific to requiring coverage for prior approved dental services. So if you send a pre-auth in to be able to perform a service on a patient, and the insurance provides a thumbs up, they can't then go back and say, oh, we've done more research and ultimately the patient wasn't eligible for the dental benefit. That will no longer fly in Florida. In addition, they will not, they're going to have some tighter legislation around required credit card payments. As you may be familiar, many insurance companies will require payment back to the practitioner through a credit card, but they also have a fee attached, another 3 to 5% to process that payment. Florida legislation is now coming out against that to say that will no longer be happening in the state of Florida as well. So 2 big wins for our friends down south in the state of Florida. A couple other state local news. Colorado and Minnesota both joined the Hygiene and Dental Compact this week, making that a total of 10 states that have now joined. Remember, this is the compact that will open up portability for licensure for all individuals in those states. Once they had the tipping point of 7, I believe, they then would form their own coalition. They'd create their own rules, their own governing body, et cetera, that would do all the work to figure out how this portability would work. Don't worry for the folks graduating from Marquette in Wisconsin. They already have their license for Wisconsin, but if they want to go to another state, they have to hope that they can participate in the Portability Act. There was a lot of discussion actually on the Instagram feed of that story about how that really only applies to Wisconsin. But with this compact looming and many states signing on, if states like Wisconsin allow for licensure by graduation from a program, then if they're part of the compact, that will open up the portability, and no longer will regional or, the state localized examinations be required for portability of that licensure. So kind of an interesting development of 2 different stories commingling together. We'll see how all of this transpires. And with that, that's the news.
That was fast and furious.
I'm at it tonight. I'm diving in.
You are ready to go.
You know what's
I
funny?
want to get our guest on.
Want to hear what's
I
funny?
do too.
Yeah.
I raced to get back into my chair. I was standing up doing something during the news. I'm like, oh my God, I got to sit down, get in front of the camera.
Yeah, right.
I did. I like,
There's literally no camera.
I have no
just
camera.
like unpacking clothes. He's sitting there in his boxer shorts. He's got a bourbon. He's just like, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. Go make me a turkey pot pie.
Ma,
all right.
the meatloaf.
Can we bring our guest on, please?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, fine. Are you going to introduce him?
Of course. I'm so excited.
Okay, well, go ahead and start. I'll bring him on. Seriously.
All right. Well, many of us that have been in the Align ecosystem for many years, it would be hard pressed to find someone out there that isn't familiar with the name Dr. Ryan Molis. He's been a part of the Align ecosystem and educating many of the clinicians out there for quite some time and encouraging them to become competent and empowered clear aligner providers in their practice. He is the #1 solo practitioner of Invisalign in the world. That's an incredible feat. And not to be underestimated by the fact that he also has 7,000 lifetime cases to date over his 23-year career. But the most impactful thing that I know Ryan for, and I think probably means the most for most of our viewers, is his commitment to educating other providers to kind of follow in his footsteps, learn from his mistakes, celebrate and be encouraged by his achievements, and then apply that in their practice so that they can then be fruitful with clear aligners. Because I do think it's a pretty impactful part of practice. When you can get really good at it, it becomes quite rewarding. So I am honored. I'm excited to have Ryan with us tonight. I can't wait to dive deep into the world of clear aligner therapy. So Ryan, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. One of the things I like what you said is I love to teach from my mistakes, and that is right on the money. That is the way I love to teach. I don't want to just show before, after, let me do a little pat on the back. That's not the way I roll. It took me hundreds of cases to figure out certain things.
Yep.
For example, like an upper lateral. Oh, upper laterals don't track. Well, wait a second. Here's why. So my message is, don't make the same mistakes that I had to make. I mean, with Invisalign, I think we're giving patients as good of a clinical outcome as conventional metal braces. And my thing is, let me show you how. Let me make you the hero of your Invisalign journey.
Yeah, because when you have clear aligners in your practice, it can be rewarding, it can be profitable, it can be great for your back and your neck. Like there's so many great attributes that you could apply to why doctors should really get more and more comfortable doing that in their practice.
Patients want to see you. They get excited to be in your chair. What we call the flywheel of momentum. For me, it's JB. It's the biggest word of mouth marketing tool that's out there. I mean, I'm sorry. Does anyone here do root canals? I do not. Chad, no.
So no, this is an anti-root canal podcast.
It's been a minute.
No, we have a donk that does that.
Yeah, we have a special guest that comes on and talks about that because we don't do it.
Yeah. We're like,
but no one is leaving your practice saying, I had the best root canal from JB. Yeah. You have to go see her. But if anyone's in Invisalign, they're going to talk about it. You give that patient a good experience. You go above and beyond. Your practice explodes. And that's what happens to dentists all across the United States, all across North America. There's nothing unique to what I'm doing. Everything's reproducible.
I think that's fantastic, frankly. And I think it's super empowering for GPs in particular, because I think for a long time, there wasn't a lot of educational support for us out there to get better at doing clear aligners. And now it feels like there's a tremendous amount of educational support, just like we were talking about in the opening. Like you understand to some level, but then when you want to get better, how do you source and seek those educational opportunities that are going to make you better? And I think you bring that to the table.
Yeah, you got to find someone who's been there, done that, is willing to share the whole recipe. So I started in 2001. Thank you for aging me at the beginning. Say I've been doing this for 23 years. I appreciate that. I started in 2001, and I did not start Molis Coaching until 2018. And I will tell you, I would never let a rep into my office as far as watching what I do. I love my Invisalign rep, but when it was time for me to have a discussion with the team about a patient about Invisalign, or have a discussion with the patient, or do anything Invisalign related, I would ask the rep to leave. Because the very first time that I had developed with my marketing person a postcard, I was doing direct mail. I went to a class in Minnesota and I saw my postcard on the screen, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. No one ever asked me about that. So well, there's a lot to unpack there. So I would sneak in. I went to as many general dentistry courses as I could around 2000, say up until 2005, and I had maxed out my knowledge. So I had gone to an ortho-only class in Chicago, sat in the back, and a couple reps walked out to me and said, Molis, you got to go. So I'm like, okay, where do I go that I'm not going to get recognized? So I traveled to about 6 different states, lied, said I was an ortho to get the education I needed. Went to different countries because I wanted to learn more, but the GP was just so basic. So yeah. I was in Minnesota, and I'm like, wait a second, that's my flyer. So
if there's a marketing opportunity here, I might not want to be sitting back any longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I guess I really decided to go all in. I mean, there's two reasons. I never said this publicly. 2001 to 2003 and 4, the more Invisalign I did, the happier I was. And it was one of those things where I think any general dentist, when they graduate, we all have debt. How are we going to buy our first house, our first car, pay down that debt? So we try everything. More root canals, more oral surgery I had on my schedule, the crankier I was. The less my team wanted to be around me. It was not the aura I wanted, but the more Invisalign I had on my schedule, the happier I was. Well, here's where I'm going. Around 2004, I started really diving in and started doing a lot of cases, started a little bit of advertising. One of our family friends, and I mean close family friend, went to all of the kids' birthday parties. We grew up together. He's an orthodontist, very close with my dad. We're at a baseball game together, and he came up to me and he said, I just want to let you know, I think what you're doing for dentistry is disgusting. And my wife was there, and he tore into me and he said, for you to be doing this much Invisalign on patients is ruining the profession. As of now, you're not welcome into my house anymore. I mean, I came home, I was torn. My wife looked at me and she's like, I'm so sorry. And we had a discussion over the next 24 hours. And there's two ways I could have gone. I said, I could obviously thought about maybe pulling back a little bit, but in the end, I'm like, well, my patients are benefiting. Malocclusions were making better. We're not watching minor crowding getting worse. We're not watching abfractions and filling them, not just treating the cause. So I said, I called my marketing person about 48 hours later, and I said, triple it in his area. And so that's when I just exploded. JB, I had to do something.
I love
I'm either gonna lay back, or I'm like, so forget it. So you want to draw a line in the sand? Let's do this. So that year I became the top provider in the state. Thanks to that little push from him.
Absolutely. And I love that because sometimes I think when someone's sat pissed off about something you're doing, you're onto something. Like you've touched a nerve he couldn't even really verbalize or understand at the time, but he knew it was making him uncomfortable. And I think your response of sort of digging in and saying, then that probably means I'm doing something right. I love that response. And I think as humans, we can learn a lot from that, because many times you're right. We would call back. We don't want to upset anybody. We're dentists. We generally care about what people think about
it.
Yeah.
But my thought was, I went through 4 years of dental school. For me, dental school sucked. It was not fun. I'm like, you know what? I'm here to support my family. I'm here to build a practice that I want. And I'm like, these patients, seeing more of these patients just makes me happy. Forget it. I'm going to triple down. No, you're not going to tell me how to run my practice just because now you're getting less referrals. That's not my problem.
That's right.
So question for you. Well, actually, I had a comment regarding that. And this is not meant for anybody to disparage anybody, but like, if you come across a really good endodontist, they want to help the GP because they can't service the population and the need. I've noticed the same thing with the really good orthodontists. They're like, dude, if you're stuck on an Invisalign case, let me help you, because me helping you is helping me. But, and so I love what you said. And I mean, I'm not saying that, I mean, it's an older school of thought, but I love what was said and what was did. And it's not meant to disparage any orthodontist. I love my orthodontists.
Chad, you hit on a point.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that. Months later, when every orthodontist in Chicagoland area was like, Molis is a goof. Months later, an orthodontist a mile away came in and brought me a plant. I'll never forget it. Gift card at a restaurant, and said, I just want to congratulate you on your success. I think you're amazing. I think what you're doing for general dentistry is amazing. I just want to let you know, if you ever have any cases that you can't do, you need help with, or cases that you want to refer out, I'm here for you. Chad,
that's awesome.
Who do you think I sent every 10-year-old and under to? Everyone. Mm-hmm. To him. Yep. My referrals to him went up 10 times. Everyone else? So what you said is right on the money. As a specialist, I'm here for you. And, endodontist, my endodontist gets everything. But to come in there shake hands, look in the eye and say, I'm here to help. If you ever get in trouble, it's called maturity. And that's the way it should be, right? So yes times
Well,
10
and
what you said,
at
Chad.
some point, it's like in our profession, there are general dentists who do great work. There are general dentists who don't do such great work. There are orthodontists that do amazing work, and there are some that do not. For me, when I find anyone in our profession that is just wanting to do something at a high level, I don't, again, it goes back to the, I'm just an assistant, I'm just a hygienist, or I'm just a GP. Obviously, if someone is putting that kind of time into their education and putting out a great product and really helping the public, then how does that hurt our profession in any way? We should be embracing those people because, quite frankly, there just aren't that many of us.
Yeah, it's just a maturity thing, right? And that's the way it goes.
If you look at every specialty, I'll say it again, the really good ones and the ones that get it will embrace it because we're helping them by taking on some of these cases. And it's all a matter of all of us knowing our own limitations. And every single one of us on the screen, our limitations are very different. My limitations with Invisalign are very different than Ryan's and Jennifer's and Jeff's. And I fully understand that and I get that. And if there's something that's beyond my scope, they're going to somebody that's better qualified. And I think that we're all very self-cognizant people. You don't just do 7,000 plus cases. And I guarantee you that there's others that you refer out. You build your confidence in the more that you do, and you've got to know your limitations. But my question for you was really just in dental school, did you ever consider going into ortho?
No, it was one of those things where I never even considered, I never graduated thinking I was going to do ortho, but I went and just tried oral surgery, root canals, ortho, fillings, crowns, veneers. I tried it all. And I think a lot of dentists do. I think the misconception big time in dentistry, if that's the message for this podcast, I think it's a win, is that you have to do a lot of things to be a good general dentist. I only do fillings, crowns, veneers, and Invisalign. That's it. Chad, I'll text my buddy if there's a wisdom tooth, conical, 60% bone loss. I'll take it out and be like, psh, oral surgeon right here. I don't touch any extractions. Yeah. What's up? So it's one of those things where you don't have to do a lot. You just focus on what you love to do and your practice will explode. It's just the patients are going to understand. Patients can read the room better than we think, right? And in doing this for 24 years, I look back, I'm like, man, I was probably a goof the first 5 or 6 years because your energy, the assistant, between me and the assistant, the patient, they know what's going on. They know that you're not comfortable. But now when you walk in my office, it's exciting, it's fun, I'm comfortable. Patients can read that energy. And my practice, now they gave up doing all oral surgery, all endo. My practice, production-wise, is 4 times what it ever was. It's exploded because of that.
I want the whole Dentist in the Know team to stop right here at whatever time we're at, because I can't, 33 minutes and 30 seconds, rewind about a minute and say, focus on what you love and your practice will explode. Because to me, that's exactly what I've done, man. You could give me number 7 with the clearest canal ever, straight as an arrow, and it would be the easiest money ever to do a root canal on it. And I am gladly going to send that to the dentist out of the know. I am gladly going to send it because I don't ever want to stick a file in a canal of a tooth ever again. And, the better you get at those referrals and sticking to what you do, the more loyalty and trust you get from your patients too. Oh, doc, why aren't you going to do that? Because you know what? I don't like it. Or one of my favorite is,
or there's someone better than me at it.
Yeah. I've even said, I said it last week. Well, why aren't you going to do this root canal? Because quite frankly, I suck at it. Okay.
I have definitely
Would you
said
want your family practitioner to say that they suck at heart surgery? Probably. I suck at it. There you go. So, know your limitations.
All right. I want
Yeah,
to, so Ryan, you talk about, I think you touched on a really important concept very early, that when you started doing Invisalign, the more you did, the happier you became in your clinical practice. And I think we all accept the fact that dentistry has been a hard profession. It's been exponentially more difficult in the last 5 years. And we do have a lot of colleagues that are struggling. They're burning out. They're leaving the profession. They're selling, and a lot of mental health issues and substance abuse. So let's talk about refalling in love with dentistry, and what were some of the things that you discovered in your journey that kind of got you back to that place where you don't feel burned out. You are excited to go to work every day.
So, JB, I'll tell you a story because, I could tell you stories on what my experience has been, but I don't think it's as powerful. I will get every 4 months. So we've trained over 6,000 doctors now in Invisalign with Molis Coaching. And I'll get a story every 6 months, and it's a story that will make you tear up. I was in a line in the Experience Center lecturing to about 100 doctors, and a woman had got up and said, I just want to let everyone know what Invisalign has done for me. She said, I was in a really dark place. Imagine how dark of a place you could get. That was me. Me and my husband were about to get divorced. My team hated me. My practice was up for sale. My kids didn't want to be around me. Substance abuse. My Invisalign rep came in for the 5th time, annoyed me, and finally said, fine, I'll try this more Invisalign thing. I'll try this Molis Coaching thing. It has nothing to do with Molis Coaching. It's just the fact that she started doing more Invisalign.
Mm-hmm.
So she said she went from doing 2 cases a year to doing 206 months. She said she dropped all root canals, dropped all oral surgery, said, I'm just going to try just doing this fillings, crowns, and Invisalign, not even veneers. She said within that 6-month time frame, she took her practice off of the market, refalling in love with dentistry. Her team wanted to be around her husband. It sounded almost like it's too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And this story is reproducible every 6 months by someone else, because we all know running a business sucks. That's one of the things in dental school they don't really teach you. But then when you're going into your practice and you look on your schedule and you're doing procedures that you don't like to do, that you don't love to do, that add more stress, the team senses that energy, you're cranky. By simplifying what you're doing in your practice, it does make you fall in love with it. If everyone sat back and said, all right, let me envision, what does my perfect practice look like? So what is a perfect day of dentistry? When I walk in that operatory to flick on the lights and I look on that day's schedule, what are the patients on there that will just get me jacked? That's what you should do. What are the procedures that are going to stress me out? Don't do them. Don't do them. Patients will stay with you. Your team, the energy, what procedures are you doing at work that when you come home, why is your energy different, right? Figure that out. Get rid of those procedures. Just do fillings all day if that makes you happy. You can be super successful. Get rid of the patients that you don't like. It's one of those things where we hang on stuff too long. We hang on team members too long that are negative energy. We hang on doing procedures too long. So for me, and for a lot of doctors I work with, doing more Invisalign is that key to falling in love with dentistry again. We think about patients are excited to be there. You're changing their smile. Once they're done, like, oh, I love you, doc. It's easy. It's not backbreaking. When you understand how to do clear aligner therapy and take on lots of different cases and not get a posterior open bite, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm actually pretty good at this. When you figure it out, it becomes the easiest procedure you could do. And for me, and I heard Chad or Jeff, you especially saying with your assistant, what they were saying at the beginning of the show, where like, I'm just an assistant. My doctor time from initial consult to retainer delivery is less than about 15 minutes. My team does everything for me. Well, how do you think that makes my team members feel? When my assistant's job used to be they suction spit. Now my assistant's job is they're the leader, they're the educator, they're empowered to do everything Invisalign-wise. When a patient walks by me and says, Dr. Molis, how are you? How are the kids? And they look at my assistant like, I have a question about Invisalign really quick. And I'm like,
this is beautiful.
I I kind of do Invisalign too. I mean, you could ask me. Like, no, doc, you're good. So, Kristen, the whole dynamic in your office changes. When you give people more responsibility. I'm a big believer that people go to work and they want to feel part of something big. They don't want to go to work and just suction, just clean teeth. They want to educate. They want to feel when they go home like they're making a difference. And 100%, Jeff. And for me, JB, Invisalign really was the solution to a lot of those running a business sucks issues.
Hey, Ryan, let me ask you about this, because anytime that we want to grow, we sometimes have to take a leap of faith. So, there's many people who say, okay, right now I'm comfortable because my schedule is full. And then they say, well, I can't really get into X because my schedule is so full, I don't have the time. You have to clear some of that schedule. You have to take at least a small leap of faith. If you're passionate about it, it will come. What are your thoughts on that? Because I went through something very similar with sleep, in that I got to a point where I could not really do any more sleep in TMJ with how full my restorative schedule was. I wasn't enjoying the basic restorative anymore. And I'm like, what am I doing? I need to sell my restorative practice and make room for all this growth in what I'm passionate about. And sometimes there has to be a little bit of a leap of faith. So I'm curious about your thoughts.
I mean, I think you and JB, you hit it on the head. You talk about mental health. I think the magic is if you're happy and you're enjoying it, then you don't have to change anything. But if you're not happy, like you said, Jeff, if you're not loving the restorative and you like to sleep more, take the leap of faith. It's very rare. I've heard stories of dentists who say, I want to dive in with this and I'm passionate about it and I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to master it to the most of my abilities. And then they fail. I've never heard of those stories.
Or only do it 5% of my practice. I'm going to learn all these skills, spend all this money, and then I'm just going to do a little bit.
But I hear that a lot, JB, where people get, they take all this CE and they get really good at it, but they're not willing to take that leap of faith. And it just ends up being such a small piece of their practice. And it's hard to really ever get truly happy that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that saying, knowledge without implementation is useless. You have to change your systems and you have to take that leap of faith. I like that, Jeff. It's one of those things where get 1% better every day. Make little changes. I'll compare it to Invisalign. I love doing that, right? When I work with dentists and tell them how to change their systems in their office, I say, compare it to Invisalign treatment. A series of small movements that over 10 months drastically changes a smile. That's how you should implement and change your practice. Don't go in there and go crazy in 1 week and annoy your team and just change the whole systems, but make small changes every week. And then in 9 months, you look back for you, Jeff, and say, wow, now I have more of a sleep practice, or now I have more of a veneer practice, or now I have more of an Invisalign practice. But you have to make those changes every single week, or else you're right. You'll take the CE, you'll do nothing with it, waste.
Well, and I will say one consistent theme that's been on the show with many of the people that we've interviewed is that where you were and what kind of dentist you thought you were going to be, what built you to the mid part of your career wasn't what sustained you and kept you in love with dentistry in the second half of your career. Like, to your point, the first 4 or 5 years, you're grinding it out because you got bills to pay. You're trying to figure yourself out, your own confidence and skills. But if you think that what you believed yourself to be at day one of post-grad dental school, and you don't have that evolutionary process that happens, I do think you end up very unhappy in the end, because there is this natural process that is very healthy about defining who you are, redefining what you're good at, what you enjoy, and then kind of leaning into that. And as Jeff said, take that leap of faith. I can't tell you how many people have come on at 50 and opened up a new cold start practice because they redefined who they were and they said, I don't want to do that anymore. This is what I want to do for the second half of my profession. And they did it, and they, came out successful because they were all in.
The money will come.
Yeah.
The money will absolutely come. You know, if you love what you do and you're passionate and you surround yourself by good people, the money's going to come. That should be secondary. Do what you love and the money's going to follow. I think people do it the wrong way. Like, oh, I have to place implants as a general dentist or else I'm not going to be successful. I've never laid a flap in my life. I would never even dream of doing that. And and we're doing okay, JB. So
Yeah.
You're right. And I would have never thought I'd be doing this much Invisalign in the first 5 years of my practice. I never thought that I would not do root canals or not do oral surgery. I'm so glad that I followed my passion, and I'm so glad I tried it. I'm so glad that I broke those root tips off, and I had to dig the root tips out for a $180 extraction at the time, which took me an hour and a half. I'm like, what am I doing? As the sweat is dripping down onto the patient's forehead, I'm like, this is probably not a good experience for the patient. I'm guessing, right? And my assistant's
It gets
wiping
bad
me
when
off.
the patient's encouraging you through the extraction.
Yeah.
They're like, "You're doing a great job, doc. Just hang in there." And I'm like, "Wait, what's happening? Why are we inverting roles now? Do I look that bad? Like hanging over you?"
The assistant's looking at you, shaking your head like, mm-mm. And then the next day you have an extraction on the schedule, and then the cranking that starts, and the assistant's like, why don't you assist Dr. Molis on this one? Telling the other assistant, I'm like, wait, why don't you want to assist me? What's going on here?
When your patients start perusing the CE offerings locally in other disciplines, you know it's time for a change.
Yeah.
Hey, doc, there's a great endo course.
Yeah. Now we do endo.
So
don't worry about it. I'm filling your root canal with files. That's normal. Trust me.
Metal is as good as gutta percha.
Promise you. Be careful going through the airport. You're gonna go off a little bit, but that's supposed to.
what I've taken so far from the night is that if I'm going to follow my passion, by God, I'm going to do a root canal tomorrow. I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to do it.
That is like the
Chad,
opposite of
let's
the
not-
moral.
no,
I know, I'm teasing.
Opposite of what you
I
just said.
kid. Hey,
I'm going to
no,
timestamp
seriously.
that one actually as a PSA to all patients in the Keller, Texas area to make sure that if you agree to do a root canal, they should decline.
So,
I'm actually gonna start a law firm. If you
Yeah.
were treated endodontically by Dr. Chad
If you have
Duplantis,
mesothelioma or had a root canal by Chad Duplantis, please contact me.
all kidding aside, let's take a dive into, the foundation of this program is education. We've all talked about education. We've all talked about educating ourselves. Where does Molis Coaching come in? How do we know we need it, and where do we start, and where does it take us? I mean, what's going on over there, man?
So I am a little type A. I don't have a large attention span. So what we decided to do,
We're going to get along just fine.
yeah, I don't know anyone like that.
they're called micro learns. So they're video lessons. It's on demand. We have 4 modules. So we talk about practice, getting the team involved, marketing, clin checks, and clinical. So it's essentially what we have now is a full ortho residency. So the way that we started off is I picture that every dentist has had about a week training of ortho in dental school, and you kind of know class 1, class 2, class 3. You might be nervous if I ask you on the spot what the difference is. All the way to, let's talk about extraction cases, precision cuts, elastics, how to not get a posterior open bite, how to take on posterior cross bite. So we take every realm of malocclusions, Chad, and it's wherever you want to go. Let's at least talk about minor crowding to moderate. And we just want to get doctors comfortable with the product. We have a Facebook community that I will say is the most supportive community out there. About 3,000 to 4,000 active doctors, where if anyone has a question in real time, you'll get answers from 10 to 20 people. Super positive, no drama. We get about 65 questions a day. People, if they need help with clin checks, can post clin checks there. We have a clin check support group. We have study clubs. We do lives now. We do masterminds. We are in 23 countries. Obviously, the mainstay is North America. And we grow. And, we are a strategic partner with Align Technology. And statistically, their data, not ours, we grow doctors more than any peer aligner education company in the world. And I think some of that reason is the way that we do this is to try to make the dentist the hero, like I said earlier, of their journey. No one cares if Ryan has done 7,000 cases. What they care is, let me show you the recipe, how to do X, learn from my mistakes. I'm a big fan of teaching from my mistakes, like I said earlier on. And we empower these dentists to be able to use the product. And for me, I think as we're getting and diving deep into what a general dentistry practice looks like, I think I'll rewind and I'll tell you why my mindset is there. So I don't advertise for general dentistry anymore. So I'm producing around $4.5 million a year out of a 4-op practice. And all of my new patients are coming from Invisalign. So they come to me for Invisalign first, and then they stay for general dentistry. So about 85 to 90% of my patients that come to me for just Invisalign stay for general dentistry. That means they're leaving somebody else's practice because they weren't.
Did you answer one of those ads that says we can get you 100 new Invisalign patients?
I've never checked that out, but it was a lot of trial and error, even for marketing. Yeah. But I never realized that patients want to stay with the Invisalign dentist out of convenience. JB, even though you might be way better at your fillings and your hygienist might be better at cleanings than mine, patients are going to stay. If your patient comes to me for Invisalign and I ask them to stay and get their cleaning at the next pickup appointment out of convenience, most of them are going to say yes.
Yeah.
Give them a good experience, and all of a sudden now they're staying at they're transferring their family over, and that's how I've grown my practice. That's kind of the magic of how I've used Invisalign to really support, we call it the flywheel momentum, to really support all the new patients that are coming into the practice. It's just the word of mouth explodes it.
Ryan, I love that you said that. The hidden, I've always called it the hidden annuity of getting really good at something and then having those patients see how passionate you are about it, how good you are at it, because then that carries over. I want you to be my doctor. And we found that in sleep. I found it in TMJ therapy. And it's the same thing. Get really good and passionate about something, and those patients want to be your general dentistry patients. So I love that approach.
100%. 100%. So that's essentially what Molis Coaching is. 12-month membership, and it's essentially an ortho residency. We do a PACE program. We do monthly member webinars. So we go live twice a year. We go live every week for 12 weeks. And, on Monday, our docs will get an email, hey, watch these video lessons. It's about an hour to watch multiple video lessons. And then on Friday, we'll go live with myself, Matt Hicks, JB, who you know, and another one of our faculty members. And we discuss the pro tips, practice pointers, key takeaways of that week's video lessons. And in 12 weeks, they've essentially completed an entire ortho residency. Now, it's intense. There's a lot of things where if you just watch us live and you don't do your homework, you might be slightly overwhelmed. But again, you could take this as far as you want to take it. And if you want to start not referring anyone out, we can get you there. It just depends how much you want to do.
Well, and don't you think the mentorship piece of that, like the Facebook support, like all the groups and the support of all the things we've talked about tonight, of doing something different, taking leaps of faith and stuff. And Jeff and I'll say that from Kois. I mean, without the mentorship and the support and the camaraderie of the other people that you're doing that program with, I don't think many of us would be very successful at implementing that fire hose of information we're receiving. And I'm sure you see the same.
And even on Facebook, JB, when someone will post, I did my first diastema case, I just followed the recipe, look at the results. And so if I was newer and I saw that, I would say, well, if all they did was follow the recipe and they could do it, then I could do it. And it's every day someone's making a post just affirming, yes, I can do this. Yes, you can do this. And we have 25 faculty members right now who are just the most supportive individuals, and they're there every day helping these doctors who are posting these clin checks and these questions. Let me walk you through this, right? Back to those microlearns. In every video lesson, it's 3 to 4 takeaways. So the last thing you want to do is, think about it. We've all been to conferences where you go for 5 or 6 hours and you're like, oh, I got 1 or 2 takeaways. I think it was worth it. I was like, let's just get rid of all fluff. Let's just make it an intense 5 to 10 minutes and listen to it on your car when you're driving to work. And that's how we did it. So we reverse engineered my practice. We had an educational expert come in and say, well, what am I doing that works? And what is the secret behind doing 550 cases a year? And how do we make this public? And how do we let other dentists have this recipe? And it took us about 15 months to build it. And now we went from an idea to having a team of, I think, 10 full-time. We have a CMO, a COO. We have people who are helping us run our businesses that are way smarter than me. It's one of those things where surround yourself with people smarter than you. And I've done that, and it worked out beautifully.
Worked pretty well for Chad and I so far.
I agree.
Yeah.
JB's like, yes, I agree. 100%.
Let's talk quickly about what scanning means for you, because we do recognize, I think, that a lot of those conversations come from that initial scan where you're having that conversation. You know, many GPs and restorative docs get into scanning because we don't want to take PVS anymore. But for me, unlocking that potential of co-diagnosing with patients and seeing those issues, do you see that as the tipping point for you for, you know, case conversions and that type of thing, for having patients participate in that process?
So I'm blessed because it's funny, JB, I don't ever discuss the scan, but my hygienist does for every single patient.
Perfect.
And that's when you know things are working, is when you walk in. One of those things where, and I think her name's Rochelle. And when I talk about Rochelle, I say everybody can have a Rochelle. It doesn't happen overnight. It might not even happen in a year. But the doctor has to start and lead by example and show your hygienist how you want. I walk in the room, JB, and this is how it works. All right, Dr. Molis, so I cleaned Jane's teeth, and then I showed Jane on the scanner a couple fractures. I set her up for the crown. The front desk already checked. She has insurance coverage. She has questions about possibly doing Invisalign. I already explained the Invisalign to her. There is ortho coverage for the Invisalign. I think we should do the crown first and maybe the Invisalign after. Some doctors like, I don't want my hygienist. Me, I want to walk in that room and within 45 seconds be like, this is awesome. High five. Thanks. Is there anything, Jane, you have any questions? When the hygienist is recommending it, there is an inherent trust with the patient and the hygienist. And when the doctor walks in, is like, well, here's what you need. You know what the patients are thinking. All right, he needs a new boat. He wants a vacation house. It should never come, I don't think. Yeah. It shouldn't always have to come from the doctor first. So I think the scanner really is a tool that empowers the team members. I'm a visual person. I think people are visual. Here's what's going on. Let me show you. And I think it's magic. So I think even if someone says, I want to do one Invisalign case a month, fine. I still think you should get a scanner. Welcome to 2015-ish, if you're still doing PVS. And, I'm a goofball because I was one of those, I got my scanner. I didn't scan for crown preps for like 2 years. And I was still doing PVS. I know. JB, you could judge. You could judge me when we're off of this. And all of a sudden, I'm like, how is it going to be? I was just used to my ways, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, you scan. I'm like, is it really 4 seconds? Is it really? And I'm like, I am a complete moron. I should have been doing this. It is so,
and no bubbles,
Oh my gosh. Right. Oh my gosh. It is so much easier. 100. It is life changing. I mean, I think what's the analogy, right? I think people are going to look back and be like, oh, I used to dip X-rays, now digital. No one's dipping. I don't think anyone's dipping X-rays anymore. I think PVS is going to be obsolete. And for the arterial scanner, I mean, to me, it's hands down the best. I love it. I always have two. My belief is if you want to grow your practice, Invisalign and restorative, have one scanner for every 2 ops. And so we have one Lumina, and then we have one, the Element 2.
Right. Yeah, the Lumina is going to change it for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Real quick, because we're running short on time, but I think that this needs to be said. So having done Invisalign for a really long time, in fact, I was one of the dentists that was a GP that wasn't even allowed to submit to Invisalign in the very early days. And, that we had to kind of go through back channels. Then they opened it up to GPs and it's been great. But I think we have to put this message out there because I'm sure there's people who go through your coaching and they get all excited. But you know how dentists are, and they say, you know what? I can cut a corner, and I can print my own aligners, or I can use X company. And I will tell you, having worked with several other companies that have said, oh, we do the same thing, no one has put the kind of time into the physics of the attachments and the tip and torque that we get. I was never able to finish a case with other systems the way I could with Invisalign. So would you just speak to that for a second, Ryan?
I mean, you might have opened up a can of worms because this is kind of my jam. I love dorking out with this kind of stuff, right? So you're right. Invisalign spends about $80 million a year developing this kind of stuff, and their triple plastic, soft, hard, soft, is what really separates their aligner from any other aligner. And here's why the optimized attachments. If anyone's still using rectangulars out there, it's like get out of doing PBS impressions. What the optimized attachment does is it actually forces the tooth into the plastic, and you're having the plastic wrap around the tooth, and the whole plastic and attachment's moving the tooth. With a conventional, that rectangular acts as a handlebar. So just the attachment is moving that tooth, not all the plastic. So with the Smart Track plastic, you have a force being applied and you have relief areas. So it stretches, snaps, and it actually helps the teeth track better. But for me, with G8, Generation 8, the optimized expansion support attachment, getting true posterior translation, Jeff, that to me was the game changer. No other clear aligner company can do that. So you're actually getting true posterior translation, true expansion. If anyone looks at my Instagram page, all my before and afters, I'll show it off. It's all expanding cases. Airway friendly. I believe in moving first molars. And you can. The last thing you would ever want to do is...
You just said that to woo me.
Well, you know what? The last thing, Jeff, I would ever want to tell someone is, oh, I could give you as good of a clinical outcome as braces, but not really mean it, right?
Right.
And so now, if you're not moving first molars, then why are you even doing ortho?
Right.
Because we know there's 3 ways to alleviate crowding, right? Expansion, proclination, or IPR. You're just doing more IPR or more proclination, but Align is the only company that can get you that true translation. They're the only company with bite ramps to prevent a posterior open bite. So I don't get posterior open bites. And there's one of the best stories. If I have another 45 seconds, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there at one of these events, and one of the doctors said, I'm newer to Invisalign, but I want to tell everyone a story. He told me at lunch, and I said, stop, you got to tell it in front of everyone. I'm using a competitor. No, he said, when I bought my practice, the owner was using a competitor. Owner left. I had to finish 25 cases with this competitor. In the meantime, I got Invisalign certified. I started doing Invisalign. I have now started and completed 15 Invisalign cases, and I can't get the other ones to finish. So you have the same doctor with the same knowledge and understanding of attachments and anchorage, and he's starting and finishing 15 Invisalign, and he can't get the other ones to track, can't get the other ones to finish. To me, that's a beautiful story because same knowledge of everything orthodontic-wise. Invisalign is such a differentiator in the game, and I don't think any other company is going to catch up for a long, long time. They just hold too many patents, and they're just pouring so much money in, getting themselves such space between them and the next competitor.
Well, I'm sorry to run us over, but to me, that had to be said. I mean, anybody who's experienced trying to finish these cases will 100% agree, yet there's so many companies out there that are, trying to sell, oh, we don't put those ugly attachments on. And yet, but you're also not able to finish the cases as well. So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, Chad. I ran us over. I'm sorry. That had to be said. Yeah.
Oh, Jeff, it's okay. It's okay.
Close this.
You're just a speaker box that we can't control.
Jeff, we could see it in your eyes that you were passionate about it, and just your facial expressions really.
Look how big my circle gets.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably close because we are over. But first off, I want to thank Ryan for being here, Dr. Molis. What an incredible experience. If there's one thing that transcends when you meet somebody, it's their passion. And I can truly see that with you. And one of the biggest things that I learned about you is that your practice is running in reverse, and it's running in reverse in a good way. You found your passion. You capture your patients through your passion. Your patients see your passion, and then that in turn builds trust and loyalty. And if more of us listen to that, I think that dentistry in the world would be a better place. So I thank you for sharing that story. I learned more about attachments in the last 5 minutes than I have, in forever. So maybe I need some coaching.
Another PSA for all those lovely folks out there in Keller, Texas.
No, I mean, but really the way that you explained the optimized attachments really was huge. That's big for people. And then another small takeaway from tonight that I want to take away is, and this is the way that my practice is being built, is that not only is your passion the gateway, but the scanner is really a gateway to your practice as well. And you talked about crown preps, and I'll just, as we close, I'll share this. I used a black and white scanner for, it's dead now, so I can talk however I want about it. I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. It was powder. It was black and white. It was supposedly the most accurate on the market. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
It was Invisalign accepted. And the biggest thing that I always heard is that color doesn't improve accuracy. Well, it may not, but it sure as hell improves relevancy. And it becomes relatable to patients when they can see it. It becomes relatable to us and to labs when they can see the margins. The scanner is truly a huge benefit to the practice. And I thank iTero for being on top of the scanning world with their innovation, not just in plastic or moving teeth, but in being able to capture teeth in real time and be able to create real products from those images. It's second to none. So with that being said, thank you again. I think it was a great show. I certainly enjoyed it. And I know we are going to ask you to be back. We always have this thing where we say, oh, you're going to be back. You're going to be back. I think what we really need to say is we're going to ask you to be back because we need to continue this conversation. So
I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me be here.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jeff,
thanks
thanks for
everybody
being
for
a
watching.
speaker box.
Same back time.
I looked as good as I ever have tonight.
You do. You've been smiling the whole time.
The whole time, baby.
Good night, everybody.
Didn't roll my eyes once.
And I don't even see your big readers.
And I have bigger ones today. Okay, let's go.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, John Boy.